As military operations continue, we want to look at the significance of the most recent strikes and what might be next as President Trump weighs his options. Joining me now, retired Lieutenant General Charlie Moore. Good to have you back with us.
Thank you, Shannon.
Okay, so this is a look at some of the recent attacks the U.S. and Israel has been carrying out, and the president with a new threat saying, listen, we're going to start going after power plants that are very important for Iran if they don't reopen the strait. He says that may be coming as soon as Monday.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really interesting development. I mean, what this basically exhibits is that this is starting to escalate a little bit in terms of the types of targets that we're going to be willing to go after inside of Iran to basically hopefully bring an end to the conflict.
So let's go to our next map here. This is looking at the range of missiles. We know that Iran tried to strike Diego Garcia, where we've got a joint base with the UK there. But that's outside of the range that a lot of people believed or assessed to this point that they had. When you start to look at this range, you look at European capitals and others. The whole point was trying to go after their missile program, so it didn't expand. But what does this tell you, this attempt on Diego Garcia? Yeah,
so this was a bit of surprise to some. Some people feared that this is exactly the type of capability that Iran had developed. But if you look at the range from Iran to Diego Garcia, this is 2,400 nautical miles. This is about double the range that most people believed that they were capable of achieving. It not only brings Diego Garcia into the mix for a place that they could potentially try to strike, but as you indicated, all of Western Europe, our bases, our personnel there, it also sends a message to the leaders of our allies there that they may be in Iran's crosshairs as well. This isn't just limited to the Middle East.
And one of the issues was when we were in diplomatic conversations with them is that they said they wouldn't negotiate at all over the missiles. It was going to be just about the nuclear program. So now we can assess that they may have better capabilities than a lot of people thought. Okay, so let's get to the next slide here, because this is where Iran has been targeting energy infrastructure. They've said with the president's threats to act Monday, they also have plans. We've seen them do it, but they say we'll come after other assets that are important for energy production as well.
Yeah, as we talked about at the very beginning of the segment, this really indicates the approach that Iran is taking at this point. They want to go after the energy sector. They want to go after oil. They want to go after natural gas. They believe this is the leverage that they can create globally to help bring it into the conflict. We can see on the map the areas that they've struck in the last few days. Of particular interest is Qatar, where they went after the natural gas fields there and the facilities. That represents 20% of the global liquefied natural gas capabilities. So the markets responded accordingly, as you would expect. But this ties back into the president's comments. He said at this time, hey, if you don't hit any of Qatar's gas fields, we won't strike any more of yours, Iran. And at that time, it was a little interesting because he specifically zeroed in on gas. I was wondering why that was. I think his comments over the last 24 hours that we're going to take away all of their domestic power capability if they don't open the straits feeds into that. Because I think what he didn't want to happen was to undercut his leverage that he wanted to use in the future, and now we're seeing him trying to use that leverage.
I quickly want to talk about Kharg Island, which continues to come up because this is that island off Iran's coast where 90% of their energy output flows through this. So we know we've hit some targets on the island, but there's a conversation now that it would take troops for us to actually, quote, take that island.
Yeah, I think that's one option. This is of strategic importance for a lot of reasons. As the slide indicates, 90% of their oil flows through here, but that represents about 60 to 75% of their annual revenue. So if you take the flow of this fuel away from the regime, it really results in economic strangulation, and it's something that can happen very rapidly. Now, how might we go about doing that? There's a couple options the president has. One would be to use our naval assets to form an embargo around the island, to not let any ships come in and unload oil. Another would be to hit on the mainland, the pumping stations and the manifolds where all the pipes from the fields come together that pump oil out to the island to prevent that from happening. We could also hit these jetties, these mooring points on the east and west side of the island where the ships come in to on-take that oil. Or, as you just mentioned, we could go and try to take physical control of Kharg Island by putting troops on the ground. That does not come without risk. Not only are we within about 15 miles of the mainland for any residual offensive capability that Iran might possess, we have to be able to protect our troops. But there's also thousands of civilians still on this island, and there's anywhere from several hundred to maybe more than 1,000 IRGC members there as well, which is going to increase the risk if we decide to take that step.
All right, all things to think through and for our Commander-in-Chief to weigh. General, great to have you back with us.
Thank you, Shannon.